I think I wrote it more than any other reason in response to the Columbine tragedy. At least that's where I began. I had been a high school teacher in an American school for about 25 years. And when I learned about Columbine, I both could empathize, but also I was very, very fearful. On the day that Columbine happened, it had been a very good day for me. I was in Boston to receive a literary award, and I was tying my necktie, getting ready for the event in the hotel, and I heard my wife gasp, and I went running out, and there on the television, happening before our eyes on CNN, was the unfolding tragedy. I remember vividly that day. I had no idea that I would end up writing about it. Yes, you know, I completed 3 novels now, and each one seems to be more difficult than the one before it. I think probably that comes as a result of the fact that my audience has grown larger, and for that I'm both grateful and a little bit intimidated sometimes. But also, it took me 10 years because in many ways life intervened. Aging parents who needed my help. We adopted a 3rd child, a young boy, during that time. And also, because I never know where the story is going to take me, many times in this process I hit the wall. I don't know where to go. The metaphor for this novel is the labyrinth, and the characters, like the ancient myth, the characters are lost in this labyrinth of life. And writing this book for me was also a sort of labyrinth. Often I lost my way and had to keep going to find out how it was going to end. I certainly have seen many examples over the years of adolescent rage. Because I teach creative writing, I was often on the receiving end of revenge fantasies, particularly by boys, written by teenage boys. But what I became curious and disturbed about was the difference between my students' fantasies and the fact that these 2 troubled young men in Colorado created the fantasy and then acted it out, acted upon it. That was for me both the question and the thing that was deeply disturbing. Of course, the American mythology is immersed in violent fantasy. Cowboy versus Indian films, and war films, and of course the science fiction that's created out of Hollywood, guns, ammunition, people fighting to the death, and I think for some disturbed young Americans, that there is a boundary that's crossed between what's fantasy and what's real. In a sense, I think Klebold and Harris, when they entered the library that day, were almost detached from what they were doing, to the point that it was no more violent for them than a video game.